Hello Rebrand gang, welcome to episode 13 of Rebrand Everything. Today we're going to be redesigning the KitKat packaging. Let's go. So the current KitKat logo looks like this, and the current KitKat website looks like this. As you can see, there's a lot of red and white, is pretty much all just red and white. Which is something that they've used for years, so this whole project I think will stay red and white regardless of the direction of the logo. I noticed that they also use this "have a break, have a KitKat everywhere," which is a really well-known phrase which maybe we can implement into our logo designs or just have it in mind when we're designing them. As I was doing my research, I typed in KitKat logo history just to see what they've had in the past, and to be honest, it's all been like either the really old-fashioned stuff where it's just like writing, and then they started introducing this oval, which they kind of have just got a developed version of now. Obviously it's a super strong brand, but in terms of the actual logo, they rely on this highlight on the text, and they kind of use this bevel and emboss effect, which kind of makes it look dated and a little bit like something from the 80s. So as with most projects, I started this chaotic sketchpad of ideas, just literally getting every single idea that was in my head out. So my initial thoughts were going along the line of like a 4-finger KitKat in its absolutely simplified form would just be 4 lines next to each other. But then I thought, well, they do 2-finger KitKats as well and KitKat chunkies and stuff. We don't want to make it focus too much on the 4 sections. Then I started looking at other ideas like using the K and kind of making an icon out of that, and using the profile of the actual KitKat, this sort of like skewed rectangle shape. At this stage, these sketches are just super rough, literally throwing every idea down in the hope that I can just pick some ideas out from this when we're in Adobe Illustrator later. I also had a few different ideas of how we could use the Ks and kind of interlock them and make a pattern out of that perhaps. This little like arrow shape, like an upwards and downwards arrow, I thought that might make quite a nice tiled pattern maybe we could use in the rest of the branding. Because the slogan was "have a break, have a KitKat," and you break it apart, they sort of play on that on their website. So I was kind of thinking perhaps the logo could be like kit there, cat there, with a little break mark in there. As always, sketching is not my strong point really, so I just used this to throw every idea I had down, and then we will clean them up and polish them up and see what works best in Adobe Illustrator. Before I show you the Illustrator process, I just wanted to remind you to press like on this video if you like it, and remember to vote at the end. There's a voting poll that should come up in a little eye in a circle in the corner on YouTube. If you could vote on that, that would be wicked, because then we can see which one is the Rebrand gang's favourite. So as always in Adobe Illustrator, I started out with our current logos over to the left hand side. I've also got a straight on Nestle logo, as the one they use on the current logo is kind of skewed, so I wanted a nice clean one for my new modern logo. I wanted to create an evolution of the logo, first of all, to get the ball rolling. So I started off by looking at the oval and maybe just using a slightly more modern font in a slightly more modern style and size, just trying to get that modern day look to it without completely losing its appeal. As I was playing around, I started leaning towards more square shape, but still retaining that little bit of like friendliness by curving the edges. Played with a few different versions of that. I wasn't quite sure where to put the Nestle logo, so on the version that I ended up with, I rotated it 90 degrees and put it up next to the white box, kind of overlapping, because I thought that kind of just made it a little bit different, a little bit modern. It kind of made the Nestle logo integrate with it rather than looking like it was just stuck on the side as an afterthought. For the next option, I tried making a super simplified icon version of the KitKat 4-finger biscuit. After trying quite a few variations of how to show these 4 lines, I preferred the very first one I did, which was just the 4 rectangles that next to each other that make a perfect square. I thought that one looked neat and tidy, and I think the rest of the work I was doing was just complicating it rather than adding to the design. It looks kind of good. It does symbolise what I'm trying to get at, which is the iconic 4-finger KitKat. But I feel like it looks a little bit too much like a tech startup logo. But then I thought, well, I'll just go with it and see if I can make it look a little bit more chocolate bar-ish in the packaging design stage. For the next option, I wanted to create an icon based on the letter K, or 2 Ks for KitKat obviously. I've drawn out a few different ideas in my sketchbook, one where the K is facing the other way, so it's kind of like a symmetrical design, and I tried a few different things like that, as well as putting that inside a circle and just generally playing around with the idea of cutting that into a circle, which is kind of a nod to their old logo, which uses the oval. As I was playing around with the fonts, I tried to find one that would stack well, so the 2 Ks kind of made this forward-facing arrow in the middle. But then I kind of thought that the shape of that it's so like big and tall that it might not fit well in all areas of the packaging. Like if say you've got a KitKat Chunky, which is obviously like a lot thinner like that, like a logo is only going to end up being that wide because it's so, like, you're so limited on the height. Then I had another look at my sketchbook and noticed that I'd drawn a little version out where the K wasn't just put beneath it, but it was also offset. So you get these little kind of two arrows, one that points upwards, one that points downwards. And I'd actually written on the sketchbook, like, maybe take this part and use it as a pattern. So I decided to follow that idea, but with the new K that I'd built. And I feel like that made quite a strong little logo with a sort of good tie-in to the pattern that we can use on the packaging. I always like using patterns on the backgrounds with logos and stuff like that, but I really prefer it when the pattern's there for a reason, like it's actually taken out of the logo. I think it's just a nice touch, and it just shows that when you're designing the logo, you're kind of thinking about the next stage. For the next option, I just wanted to focus on making a logo that somehow used the profile of a KitKat bar, and I pulled a picture in for reference from Google, and started drawing out the profile shape of that. Then I thought maybe I can duplicate them up next to each other to make the side profile or the front profile of a 4-finger bar. They kind of had something I liked about them, but it looked a little bit too much like maybe just 4 hats next to each other, and I kind of think it got lost in translation. And I wasn't really a great fan of how the text was working with it either. It kind of just looked slapped underneath, and it just wasn't working how I'd imagined in my head. Yeah, because this idea wasn't working very well, I decided to just pretty much bin it and just move on to the next one, because I was finding I was spending quite a lot of time drawing out all these different profiles and side shapes and everything, and I think I was just overcomplicating it. There probably was a solution in there, I just couldn't find it at this exact time. Everything I was making was just looking a bit ugly, so I decided just to move on to my next idea. So I decided to play around with the idea of having the kit and cat as 2 different sections that were broken with like little lines, just to show that it's just broken, like snap or break, which also ties in nicely with their have a break, have a KitKat line. Started off looking at putting it inside a rectangle, kit on one side, cat on the other side. Then I used the just line tool, and then used roughen, which is just a little command in Illustrator that you can use to roughen up the line. Then I expanded that, selected the line and the rectangle, did the pathfinder command, and then just broke them apart 5 degrees that way, 5 degrees that way, and then added these 3 little lines here, which just makes it look a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more like it's just been broken rather than just a flop down logo that's just hanging there. I feel like that's got some scope. I feel like it looked quite good and quite exciting on the packaging. I tried doing the same thing on just 2 lines to kind of show the KitKat finger breaking, but I didn't really know how that was working as part of a letter K. So I decided to just take that and put it above a KitKat word mark. Because I'd like the idea of the 2 words being broken like that, I thought maybe what if it was just 2 lines being broken and then we put the word KitKat underneath. I just wanted to explore that and then put them next to each other and decide which one I like best. For the next option, I had this idea in my head that I wanted to kind of combine the 4-finger icon that we'd made with a sort of K icon as well. So kind of implementing 2 ideas into one. So I spent quite a lot of time playing around in Illustrator, just trying to make it work with the 4 lines, working with the 2 Ks rather than looking like they've just been slapped on over it. Doing the same trick that we used earlier, where you just put a little gap between it so it kind of looks like it slides behind without making it look like it's part of the K. That kind of little bit of space just makes it look a little bit more interesting. I then finished this one off by looking at how we could use that inside different shapes, maybe doing a throwback to the old logo by putting it inside an actual oval, which I thought that might work quite well. And then you see on the old KitKat logo they have that red ring inside. I kind of played on that by putting another white ring on the outside of our new logo. And then again we've just got a simple word mark underneath just to hold it all together and make it clear what's actually being sold. So I'm about to show you the final options. I just wanted to quickly remind you to vote for your favourite in the YouTube poll. It should come up in there's a little eye in a circle somewhere up there, and it will come up saying what's your favourite. Please vote on that so we can tell which one is the Rebrand Gang's favourite. If you liked this video, please remember to press like, it really helps me out. If you want videos like this every single week, different projects, different designs, different styles, press subscribe and put the little bell on so you get a notification when I upload. So here are the final logos. Remember to vote. Cheers.